What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I'm your host, Jay, and welcome back. Oh, man, that little layoff was nice, but it's time to get back to work, man. A lot of stuff has happened. A lot of stuff has happened in the last couple of months. Case in point, as you can see behind me, I'm actually in an actual studio that I created to do this in. Me and my wife ended up moving, which is one of the reasons for the layoff. I knew that was going to happen, but we're in an actual house now. Like, I'm not sharing a house with somebody else for the first time in like my entire adult life, except for like 2 years. And even then, it didn't really count because it wasn't really my house at that point in time. But yeah, this is the first time in my adult life. We'll just say that I've actually got a house and I'm not sharing this with somebody else. So that in itself has been great. I've been able to create this, which has been an entire area that I can just leave set up to do this stuff in. I don't have to break down, tear up, break down, blah, 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 blah. So that in itself is nice, but it has kept me busy trying to get all this together. But we did it, and it was a lot of hard work. I wish I could say I was grateful for it. I'm grateful to the people that got me into this place, and I'm grateful for the neighborhood that I moved in. But as far as saying I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, we worked our asses off. We being me and my wife worked our asses off to get in here, and in my opinion, overdue. So I don't know what the universe was waiting on to get us to what we worked so hard for. But hey, we're here, so that's all that matters, I guess, right? But so yeah, there's that. And then I thought it was time to start the show back up. Now I was gonna wait until September to restart this show. I was saying that publicly. I did a test stream when I was testing out all this equipment down here to make sure in this space that I've created for this that it would work. I said I was gonna shoot for September to start doing the show. I decided to scrap that. And here's the reason why. And I wanted to say this publicly on this episode and let everybody know what the new schedule is going to be. So one of the reasons I think I got burnt out doing the show, was because I was doing it for so long without a break, which was about a year and a half. I wanted to take a longer break, but then I was on Babatom and things kind of blew up for me and had a lot of opportunities in front of me that I could not let slide by and a lot of momentum. So I kept going for that reason, but also because I dedicated myself um, to doing it weekly. That was a goal I set at the beginning of doing this. I just wanted to, get the product out there and get it established. And for a year and a half, I did everything possible to make it weekly. So I've been racking my brain the last couple of weeks, like, I don't what do I want. I don't really want to do weekly again because keeping that commitment was hard. Because life obviously gets in the way. But I made that commitment and I was sticking to it. But now that commitment's over, so I didn't really want to do weekly. But at the same time, like, man, if a lot of interviews come my way, I don't want to not release it weekly, so maybe bi-weekly. But I'm like, I don't really want to commit to bi-weekly either. And then it just dawned on me, fuck a schedule. Just don't keep one. Drop this whenever I want. This is my show. I can do whatever I want with it. So that's what I'm going to do. There is no schedule anymore. I'm taking the schedule and I'm throwing this shit out the window. No more schedule. I'm going to drop this whenever I want to drop it. Whenever I want to drop it. I'll give everyone plenty of notice unless if it's a surprise. That I normally give 48 hours when an episode is going to drop anyway. So I'll just stick to that format. I'm just going to drop these whenever I want to drop them. So I'm going to aim probably for Wednesdays just to be consistent. But fuck, I might do it on Wednesday or Thursday here or there, or maybe a random Friday. Maybe I probably won't do Monday because it's just too hard to promote it. Everybody's coming back from work, and plus Monday is one of the busiest days for podcasting anyway, and I just like being different, if you don't know by now. But so yeah, the format is no more format. We're going to see how that goes. Maybe I change it. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not committing to a weekly product. I'm also not saying there's not going to be a weekly product, but just so ahead of time, these will come out as they come out. This is a passion project for me, and it's one that I don't want to get burned out on again. So I don't want to sit here and promise you it's going to be weekly. It could be twice a week. Who knows? We'll see what happens, man. That's the beauty about taking the schedule and throwing it out the window. Is I can do this whenever I want, and that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, today's guest, the great Vince Russo, one of the most controversial figures you'll ever meet in life. And man, when I had a line to talk to him, I jumped all over it. I had some other things in the works that were possibly going to kick off this next technical season 2 of the Rose Show. But when he came across my desk, I was like, I can't miss that. I've always wanted to talk to him. And he was real gracious, which was real surprising because, I don't really want to say it's a gimmick, but you always see him all fired up. And maybe that's because that's just, the way that he wants to be shown in his own product. But with this one, it was a lot more chill, which you'll see here in a little bit. Obviously, towards the end, we get fired up, and there's some things said that I think might get both of us clipped and put on the internet, but hey, that's what it is, right? But yeah, I was real pleasantly surprised with how this interview went because it was just two guys talking, and man, I think it turned out real well, which you'll see here shortly. So anyway, let's go ahead and get a word from my sponsor and into my interview with Vince Russo, bro. Let's do it. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jay, and I'm here for W Energy, my sponsors. Now, what is W Energy, you might ask? W Energy is clean, jitterless energy. Better than the canned stuff that you would get at your convenience stores, your gas stations, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have all that trash in it. Now, how do I know? Because I myself use W Energy. So what I've got here, a couple of limited edition flavors. For instance, W Energy puts out this stuff called Grandpa's Ginger Water. I know it don't sound that great, but it is amazing. Limited run that they came out that I've got actually multiple tubs of. I believe in W Energy. I use W Energy myself. Also, this was just released and it's another limited edition flavor that they come out with, and it's called Palm Blom. It's pomegranate blossom. Real nice, clean flavor. And a lot of W Energy, whether it be classics like Calio Cream or the Dub Sludge, whatever it might be, it is clean energy. It's not going to make you feel all crappy at the end of the day after using it. Now, here's what I want you to do, because again, they're obviously a sponsor of mine. But what I want you to do is I want you to go to www.w.gg, order one of the sampler packs, which you get one of these cool tumblers, a part of the sampler pack. And I want you to grab one, but don't use my promo code. That's right. Don't use my promo code Who Else at checkout, because I want you to try it without thinking I'm just trying to sell you a bill of goods. Try it one time, and then when you go back to buy your second order of W Energy, then use my promo code Who Else at checkout for a 10% discount, because all you're going to do is try it. I know you're going to love it. That's how much I believe in this product, and I thank them for sponsoring the show today. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode. As a matter of fact, the start of season 2 of The Rose Show. As always, I am your host, Jay. Who else but me? And today, my guest is one of the most captivating individuals in the entire professional wrestling industry and its entire history at that. He's somebody that, for me anyway, he narrated two of the most important eras of professional wrestling in my fandom, at least. And I've got a lot of respect for this guy. I've been following him ever since I was a little kid, even though at the point in time I used to know him as Vic Venom, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. But at some point in time in my life, he's always been involved, and I've got a lot of respect for this guy. And I think he deserves a lot more respect than he gets these days. But hey, we'll get to all that later. It is the man, the myth, the controversial legend, Vince Russo. My friend, this is an honor to be talking to you today. How are we doing?
Jay, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy you're having me. I see you off the bat, man. You're already over with me. I could see you're a huge baseball mark. You're wearing your Cincinnati
I am.
Printer. I love Dela Cruz. I think he's like top 3 in the league. So I respect that. I am. See, people find this hard to believe. I swear, Jay, I not only am I not a wrestling mark, I am not a wrestling fan. This is a job. I go to the job every day and I do the absolute best that I can. I am a baseball mark, through and through. So I love the fact that you're sporting your Cincinnati Red Leg wear.
Yeah, I've been a Reds fan my entire life, man. Just living. This is the only Ohio team that I have as I live in the Dayton, Ohio area. And I can't stand Browns fans. I think they're just forever hopeful. I can't stand Bengals fans because they're only cocky when they're winning. So I had to pick at least one. And my whole life I've been a Cincy
Yeah,
fan.
it's like that here, man. I live in Colorado now, and Denver Bronco fans are so obnoxious. I can't. I root for, I'll root for the Rockies. I'll root for the Nuggets, but Bronco fans are so obnoxious, man.
Well, at least it's not singular to here. But so we're okay. So let's go ahead and get into this before we just talk baseball for the next 45 minutes because I can do that, but I don't want to do that. But what I kind of want to do today is just might be asking you some questions you've heard before, but I don't do shoot interviews as far as like watch them anyway because I just think they're too negative. So I kind of just want to talk to you about some questions before that I've always had ever since I was a little kid. So speaking of being a little kid, I know from an early age you were a fan of the WWF from what I've read and what I've heard from you. How did you first fall in love with professional wrestling at a early age?
Oh, that's great that you asked because it is so vivid to me, and it kind of the very first moment kind of parlayed into like my entire career. But
Mhm.
believe it or not, way back in my day, you had black and white televisions, and you had 9-inch black and white televisions, and you had in New York, you had channel 2, 4, 7, 5, and 9, 2, 4, 7, 5, 9, and 11. That's it. So you had to go to something called UHF. Uh, and you needed rabbit ears, you needed the whole 9 yards. Well, I went to UHF to watch something, and I came across these three individuals, and I stopped dead in my tracks. I had never seen anything like this before. And it was Jimmy and Johnny Valiant and Captain Lou Albano. And I saw them cut this promo, and I was like, holy crap, what is this? So it's interesting that my first experience with professional wrestling, the WWF, was a promo and were characters, and it was character driven, and that was the first thing I saw, and that was really the first thing I fell in love with.
Yeah, and for just to kind of piggyback up what you just said, I've always been the type of fan like great matches are great, but for me it's all about stories. Like if I can't get I need a reason to watch, and that's anything. You know, even when it comes to like we were talking about at the beginning of this, sports. If you want me to dedicate 2.5 to 3 hours of my time to sit down and watch, you have to give me a reason.
Yeah.
And sports, 9 times out of 10, the story is the competitiveness of the game. So that you have to keep me compelled. I've been like that my whole time. I don't like playing online based games. I like a story, you know, along with my games. I don't like online gaming. Same thing with wrestling. If I don't have a story to suck me in, I don't care that much. But going all the way back to when I was a kid, 12, 13 years old, and the reason why I bring that up is that I didn't care about quote unquote 5-star bangers. I didn't know that work rate was a thing until the internet came around. I didn't know that star rating matches were a thing until the internet came around. I didn't give a shit if somebody had 1,500 flips in their match. I was focused on the story because A, number one, when I was a kid, it was still real to me. But number two, that's what brought me in. It wasn't the random matches that would happen in between segments. It was the main story. And one of the first things that kind of co-opted that for me was the WWF magazine. My mom would buy me a subscription every single year. It would come straight to our door. And the first thing I would do, and we didn't have cable a lot of the times when I was a kid, but I would always have that magazine. So that's how I knew the name Vic Venom. Um, when it comes to how you wrote that magazine, was there a certain formula that you did once you started taking over the whole process from your predecessor? Was there a process you had to writing that magazine, or was it just something like did you have a formula set out for you, or how did that come about as far as creating that?
Yeah, man, that's the thing. I wrote, I would say, cover to cover, I wrote probably 80% of that magazine every single
Mm.
month. And that is why I had to come up with character names because I didn't want everything to be by Vince Russo, by Vince Russo, by Vince Russo, by Vince Russo. That's why I came up with The Informer, and that's why I came up with, Vic Venom. I literally had to come up with character names so it just didn't look like it was my point of view for the entire magazine. But my God, yeah, man, I wrote my ass off. I was writing stories every single day. And, that was kind of like my parlay into television writing because I was put in a very bad spot where, I was working for a company that I loved growing up. I love the entertainment value and aspect of professional wrestling, but what we were doing at the time absolutely sucked. And it was
Mm.
very, very, very hard for me. And what happened was I started creating my own angles in the magazine. I couldn't, what they were doing on television was just terrible. So I just kind of went into business for myself and started creating my own angles in the magazine that had nothing to do with what they were doing on television. There was no truth or anything behind them. It was just all my imagination because I couldn't sit there and write about TL Hopper and the Goon and Mantar and all these absolutely ridiculous characters. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, something else I wanted to ask you about when it came to that magazine, because again, you brought up the color television. And I'm going to date myself here, being 39 years old. Back when I would look at the newsstand magazines, you would see the aftermags. The aftermags at the time, and you're talking about Pro Wrestling Illustrated, all that kind of stuff. They were mainly black and white. I've still got a bunch sitting upstairs. Actually, they were mainly black and white, and there would be one color insert, like poster in the middle, and that would be like the selling point for the magazine. Would be get your full color poster inside the magazine. God, just saying that just dated me about another 10 years. But but the WWF magazines were all in color. Was that from front to back, by the way? There wasn't any black and white. Was that something that was, I guess, for lack of better words, like a directive as far as developing that magazine? Was it a concentrated effort to make sure that's how it stuck out, or is that just pure coincidence?
No, I'm just assuming with the Aptomags, they couldn't afford to print in color. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, because that was never a thing. I mean, a magazine is going to be in color. I mean, that's what it's going to be. So that's probably why they were forced to go that route. It was probably budgeting, and they just couldn't afford it.
Gotcha, gotcha. And see, that's something else that kind of dates us too. At the one point in time, color was a big deal, and it
Yeah,
costed quite a
absolutely.
bit of money.
I remember when, God, I can remember when my grandparents got their first color TV. I mean, I can go back that far and remember that.
Yeah. And I know I've heard that, like you said, as far as creating your own storylines, I know I've heard before where certain talent really liked the fact that you would do that. Was there any talent that was like read something that you wrote about them and they got pissed off, or was everybody just kind of like, hey, at least he's making it interesting?
Yeah, man. See, that's the thing, man. When I first got there, everything that they wrote in the magazine was all made up. They never
Mm.
talked to the talent. They never involved in the talent. And I'm like, you've got the entire roster at your fingertips and you're going to make stuff up. And that's when, I started going to TVs and I started interviewing the talent and I started making the talent part of the magazine. Nobody had ever done that before.
Was there any pushback about you doing that, or was everybody in general like, hey, more power to you?
Yeah, no, everybody was cool because, I can even remember, like, just to use as an example, like, Deborah Maselli, Alundra Blaze. She wasn't getting any play on television. She was getting none. So she was getting play in the magazine. At least her brand was being put out there. And I think people like that really, really, use that vehicle when they weren't getting any play on television.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Well, when you eventually upgraded from the magazine to the lead writer, something that I've always been curious about, and this can cover from the second you became part of the main writer for WWF all the way to your last day in TNA. Um, was there anything that you created for a certain individual wrestler, whatever talent it could be? Was there anything that you created that you were like, oh, this is going to be great, this is going to work, but no matter everything you tried, it just could not get over for whatever reason? Or the latter, is there something you wrote and you went, this is never going to work, and it ended up exploding?
God, not really, man, because I think more than anybody, I was the one that probably had my finger on the pulse of the fan response more than anybody. And I
Sure.
say that because I studied these ratings, the quarter hours, the minute by minutes. I would place myself in the crowd to listen to response from the crowd. And one thing that was key and was vital, that is the complete opposite today, which I never thought I'd see the day. I paid no attention to the internet. Back then, it was Prodigy and it was AOL, but it was starting. My whole mentality was these people are watching anyway.
Yeah.
As long as wrestling is in the marquee, they're not going anywhere. That's money in the bank. I've got to go out and I've got to get the people that are like maybe on the fence and wrestling's not cool and oh, that fake wrestling. I've got to go out there and get the casual television viewer to buy into the product. I got to be honest with you, man. When I started seeing the WWE cater to the hardcore wrestling fan and the internet and the marks, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But here's the reason why they do that, because that's much easier. It's much easier to cater to an audience you already have. To go out there and get a new audience is not easy to do. And I think that's why we've seen the shift. And now all of a sudden, wrestling is this niche audience, and it's the same people paying the same money over and over and over again because those are the easiest people to get aboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. The people that complain the loudest are going to watch every time. I see the same people bitching and moaning about the same friends of mine bitching and moaning every single week. And they're going to tune in next week too. And then they're going to bitch and moan next week. And then they're going to tune in the next week after that. And it's a vicious cycle. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. They're going to be there. You've got to go get those people that are not watching the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The only real time where I've actually really been turned off to the WWE product when life hasn't made me stop watching for a while was during the era with the guest GMs and the Muppets were guest hosting Raw and stuff like that. That was not my era. Coincidentally enough, I was 110% a TNA mark during that time. I tuned in TNA at the time, which you were obviously there, was running a local venue in Troy, Ohio called Hobart Arena. And that's when I had heard ramblings about TNA here and there, but I never really gave it much of a chance. A, because I didn't have cable, so I couldn't tune into Spike. But B, I started because they started frequenting in Troy and I wasn't watching WWE at the time. I was like, man, maybe I should check out this other promotion and see what they got because at least they're coming to my hometown. I mean, it's 15 minutes away from me. Why not? So I really started tuning in, and then I got a hold of AJ Styles, and then I got to see Jeff Jarrett in a new light, and I got to see Kurt Angle in a new light, and just all these things just opened this door for me. Jay Lethal, never watched a Jay Lethal match before, and I was just instantly hooked. And then you guys started bringing in some of the guys that I always thought should have gotten a push, like Ken Anderson. I'm a huge Ken Anderson fan, always have been, always will be. And you were obviously, a main architect in that time frame. What was some of your favorite? And doesn't have to be wrestling related or any storyline or anything like that. Do you have any fun TNA memories that you had from your time there that really sticks out when you're like, man, that was such a cool moment? And again, it doesn't have to be in ring or anything like that. Anything happened that really sticks out to you during that time?
Man, I got to tell you, when TNA started in 2002 and the Attitude Era was over, I always say, I don't care what anybody says, the Attitude Era ended when the writers left the WWE. When Russo
Yeah.
and Ferrara left, the Attitude Era was over. I told Vince McMahon when I left, I said, you've got a year to ride the wave. Everything is already everything is already in place. All you got to do, man, is put it on autopilot. You've got a year. And that's exactly what happened. So when I went to TNA, I wanted to evolve it. I wanted to go beyond the Attitude Era. And basically what that meant was we were improvising. We were making stuff up, on the spot. And what I mean by that is we were doing a deal where I had a role on the show, but everybody on the roster didn't even know I was in the state of Nashville, let alone let alone at the arena. So basically, what we did for a while was I was at Jeff's house. I was at Jeff Jarrett's house. I'd get the call, Vince, come on over. I'd go over. The Harris twins would meet me at the back door. They would open the back door, and I would walk into that arena, and nobody knew I was coming. And we improvised. And bro, it was absolutely awesome. If you ask me, that's the direction that it should have continued to go in. But here's what always happens. People get scared because they don't know where it's going. Where is this going? And my philosophy is I don't know where it's going. Let it just go. Let it just go, and we will ride this. Let it go. And they're always afraid of where it's going. I remember Eric Bischoff loves to say this about me, that Vince Russo would have an idea, but when you ask him where the idea was going, he'd have his deer in the headlights. Look, no, there's no deer in the headlights. I don't know where it's going. This is the idea. Let's go with it and let's see what happens. And then let's write and book and plan and shape accordingly. Like, brother, when you woke up this morning, do you know what's going to happen today? You don't know what's going to happen. So let's go with it. That's the difference between then and now. When I wrote, I did everything organically, man. It was all organic, and everything relied on the numbers and what they were watching and who they weren't watching, how they were reacting to certain wrestlers. I'm not bullshitting you, man. The fan base wrote the show. I just followed what do you want? That's one of the big problems you have today. You've got Tony Khan and you've got Triple H. They are writing and producing a show that they like. Bro, who cares what you like? It's not about what you like. It's about what the masses like. And you get those numbers. They're telling you, we like this, we don't like that. They're telling you. And all you got to do is adjust to those numbers, and you're going to grow your audience. But there's such egos involved that, Triple H loves, and Shawn Michaels loves Johnny Gargano. So Johnny Gargano is going to be on the show. Fine, bro. Then you got a whole casual fan audience saying, who the frig is this guy? It's not about them. It's not about what they like or who they like. It's about the masses. And that's why you continue to see numbers go down on USA, numbers go down on Netflix, because people have figured out, like you said earlier, why am I going to sit here for 2 hours when I just need to go an 8-minute highlight clip? I don't need to sit here for this. Show doesn't warrant 2 hours of my time. I'll go to YouTube when it's over. I'll spend about 8 minutes and I'll know everything that happened. To me, that's not a positive. That's people telling you your show is not worth my time. That's what they're telling you.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more on that one. And full disclosure, I'm somebody that doesn't let the people I like not liking each other affect how I, view other people. And I say that because Eric Bischoff is a personal hero of mine. I've got a lot. He's actually been on this show before. I've got a lot of respect for him, but I know his opinions on you, and that's the only reason why I bring that up. And he talks about the deer in the headlights thing, and I think there's a valid. Easy for me to say, you make a valid point with what you just said, because case in point, I just was hearing about Breaking Bad, the TV show, and how they would write their show. They would start with a point. So like at the end of the last season, you hear about the Gatling gun in the truck or something like that. And then it goes all the way to the end. When they wrote in the Gatling gun, they had no idea what that Gatling gun was for. They had no idea how it was going to tie in. They just put it there and went, we'll figure it out as we go, and we'll tie that gun into the storyline later. So what you just said mirrors one of the most successful TV shows of all time.
Well, you've got to throw wrestling into the mix as well. And here, listen, man, Eric, I'm going to tell you right now, Eric Bischoff is a lot smarter than I am. When it comes to business, Eric Bischoff blows me away. There's no question about it. Eric Bischoff is not a creative guy. He may think he's a creative guy. He's not, and that's okay. We all can't be everything. I told you, I'm a horrible businessman. I'm a creative guy. That's how my mind works. And that's it with him. But he'll tell you he's a great creative guy. You know, here's the problem. Eric would wanted to write like what you had to write a Bible. And the Bible has all the characters in it and descriptions. Then you had to write like a 6-month arc.
Yeah.
Let's take that for a second. A 6-month arc. You are talking about a roster full of people that are going to get hurt, that are going to have contract issues, that are going to be put on the sidelines for failing drug tests. Look what just happened to Seth Rollins. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a 6-month arc on Seth Rollins and spend hours and hours and hours and hours doing that when Seth Rollins can get hurt next week. It's a massive waste of time. When we wrote the shows, we had the pay-per-view. We knew what the next pay-per-view was. The 4 televisions in between got you from pay-per-view to pay-per-view to pay-per-view to pay-per-view. You are massively wasting your time when you're sitting there trying to write 6 months of television with all the injuries that are involved in wrestling. And like I said, you know, people failing drug tests, people taking personal time off, you know, contract negotiations, somebody effing up and now you're told they got to sit home for 2 months. It's a massive waste of time. But what it does is it makes it look like you're doing something. Bro, whether it makes me look like I'm doing something or not, I'm not going to freaking waste my time, especially, like I said, with the injuries. You know, I'm going to write 6 months for Liv, and then Liv's going to get hurt. Okay, let me write 6 months for Bianca Belair. Oh, she's out now. It's a massive waste of time. That's not the right way to write wrestling.
And to your point about Liv Morgan, they had this whole plan for Evolution 2 laid out that she was supposed to be the centerpiece. And then last minute, they have to throw it out. And then the end result is we just threw something together and people weren't really that excited for it. And then it goes down as one of the best shows of the year. So when you sit there and talk about you have to have this arc or else it won't work, we just had proof that that's not the case.
Right.
So absolutely, yeah.
That's why I say, like, I swear to God, I think a Seth Rollins injury is the best thing that can happen to them because now they got to freaking think. Now they got a book on the fly. You had a guy in such a key role that's not going to be around for a while. What are you going to do? That forces them now to think outside of the box. There's a sense of urgency rather than just rinse, wash, and repeat week after week after week after week.
Yeah, and Seth is not in a hurry to get back. He just did a couple hostings of the Rich Eisen show.
Yeah.
I've listened to them both. Very good, by the way. I highly recommend it. He had a real good appearance on there talking sports and all that. But his very first day on the Rich Eisen show, co-hosting for Eisen, he straight up said, like, this is different than 10 years ago. I'm going to take my time coming back to this. So he's not rushing back anytime soon. He's going to nurse this injury. He's going to make sure it's proper. So don't expect him to hurry up and get back. He said that publicly. I'm not breaking any news here. He said that publicly. So like you said, that forces them to go into a different position. And from Eric's standpoint, I can see where he's coming from a TV standpoint, but this isn't just like, you're not recording the whole season within a month.
Exactly.
You know, this isn't a year. You know, you're doing it on the fly. Exactly what you said.
If you're writing Breaking Bad, great, man. Sit down. You know, take 6 months and write 10 episodes. You know, none of the odds of an actor getting hurt and you got to rewrite the show are slim to none. When you're dealing with professional wrestlers, in a match, especially today with the risk and the chances that they're taking, you cannot write out over a long period of time. Somebody's going to get hurt. What if a movie comes up? You got Cody in movies now, and you got Ray. What if that stuff comes up? It's a massive waste of time, and he can call me the deer in the headlights all he wants. Sometimes Eric forgets, with his 83 weeks, bro. Who was the guy that came around and reversed that? And here's why. Because Eric wasn't creative. They drove that NWO into the ground to the point where it meant nothing. It meant zero. That's a lack of creativity. And that's really what opened the door for us. What opened the door for us was the NWO became so stale with Wolfpack and Red and this and that and all that other stuff. And there was nothing new. And, that opened it up for us. That's all we needed was that opening. And that was really the birth of the Attitude Era.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say on this, and then we'll move on because I don't want to keep harping on Bischoff just because. But it's funny that he talks about, when it comes to you would just ask him a question. Okay, and then what? When he brings up, okay, the plan for the NWO was the NWO was going to take over Nitro, WCW was going to take over Thunder. Every time he says that, I just want to go, okay, and then what?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he always talks about that was the plan. Well, what was going to happen after that? You never bring that up. It's almost like you didn't have a plan.
Yeah, here's the then what. Let me tell you. Here is the then what. And see, Eric will never understand this because Eric's not a writer. He never will be a writer. It's not his strong suit. Here's the now what. When you have well-defined characters, the show writes itself. Because as I'm sitting here watching the show and all of a sudden these moments create themselves, now what it comes down to is what would Rock do if that happened? What would Taker do if that happened? What would Austin do if that happened? So as I'm writing these scripts, I become that character. And I put myself in Mick Foley's shoes and I put myself in Austin's shoes. And as long as they are true to their character, the shit writes itself. You don't need to plan out 3 months, 6 months. The shit writes itself. As soon as a show ends, the next show should pick up right where that show left. And like I said, we don't live life knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. That's not how we live life. It's all organic. And when wrestling was written in that style, it was the most successful it ever was.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, on the same topic as far as writing the television show, recently, there was a trailer released through Netflix for the new show WWE Unreal. It's a hot topic for a lot of people. Either you're really excited about it or you really think it's going to hurt the business. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what this show is going to do. Do you think this is going to be something good for the product showing? For those who don't know, WWE Unreal, if you've been living under a rock, WWE Unreal is a show that is going to basically expose the backstage happenings of the business like you've never seen before. They're apparently going to show wrestlers talking out of character. They're going to be showing the writing room. They're going to be showing all that. Just look up the trailer if you're unfamiliar with it. But if you're watching this, I can almost guarantee you are. But I'd be interested to hear what you think about that project. I honestly don't know as a lifelong fan, but as you as somebody have done it, I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I'll be honest with you. I think they're going to expose themselves and how inept they are. Because I got to tell you, man, if say hypothetically you were doing this show during the Attitude Era, holy crap, I want to know how they did this. How did Austin drive a beer truck into the arena? Was Austin really driving that monster truck? How did they do buried alive matches? Like when you look at the Attitude Era, like I really want to know. When I look at today's product, what do I want to know? Like, what are you going to show me behind the scenes? And bro, you've already seen the promo. We're sitting in a boardroom with shirts and ties, and we got erase boards behind us. That's literally what the show looks like. That's literally how the show comes across. But here's the bottom line. They're going to show you what they want to show you. I mean, they're in total.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they're in total control of the show. They're going to show you what they want to show you. But like I said, man, I think they're really going to expose themselves, because I watch these shows week in and week out, and quite frankly, there's nothing to see here. So what brilliant creative are you going to bring me into that I'm going to be, oh, that's how they do the trick. Oh, like, I'm telling you, and listen, man, they've got a way of making themselves look bad without realizing they're making themselves look bad. When Triple H is going to sit at a scrum and say the Ron Killing scenario was part of, bro, you're an idiot. Why would you insult me like that? So, okay, Triple H, it was part of the show. So part of the storyline was 3 weeks later, Ron Killings is going to be in an angle with Aleister Black. That means absolutely nothing. That was the plan. That was the plan. That's what I'm saying, man. They expose themselves and they don't even realize it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that when it came to they're only going to show you what they want to show you. That's a real good point, because they can manipulate that to make it look however they want, whether it's real or not. We don't know the difference as the outsiders. That's absolutely correct. And to piggyback on what you said, as far as there's nothing to show, do you think that there's anything positive going on in wrestling, or from your perspective? Because just as a fan standpoint, is there anything that, I know you said that you're not really a wrestling fan, but from a watcher standpoint, is there anything at all, and from any product, WWE, TNA, AEW, which in my opinion, nothing about AEW is good, but that's my opinion. Is there anything at all that really draws you at all, or is it just nothing? Is it just flat from start to finish?
Bro, listen, I only watch wrestling they pay me to watch. That's it.
Gotcha.
If I'm not getting paid to watch wrestling, I'm not watching wrestling, because it's a massive waste of my time. If I was not getting paid right now from Sportskeeda, I would not be watching Raw and SmackDown. And I already told Sportskeeda, this is where I am with wrestling and the product. I already told them, when I turned 60 years old, I watched the first 15 months of AEW. When I turned 60, I said, I cannot waste another second of my time watching this freaking product. I'm going to be 65 in January. I have not watched another AEW show. I already contacted Sportskeeda, and I said, guys, on my 65th birthday, I am done watching these shows. I'm giving you a heads up so you could plan what you want to do. At 65 years old, I am not going to be wasting 1 second of whatever time I have left to watch Raw and SmackDown, when it's obvious to me they don't give a shit. They could give a shit what they put on that show. They could care less. And me at my age, like I said, whatever I have left, I'm going to be watching that. My time's more valuable than that.
Yeah, I totally understand, because even I would consider myself a fan even to this day. Even now, like just last weekend is when Evolution 2 and Saturday night's main event came out, for context for those watching at this point in time. But I went to fucking Kings Island with my wife. Like, I'm not staying at home watching wrestling. I'm going to Kings Island this summer. I'm not even Sunday, the next day, Evolution. I didn't watch a second of it. Why? Because like you said earlier, I can watch 8-minute clips and I'm all caught up.
Yeah,
There's nothing.
I'm sure you feel that, bro. I am sorry. I would like to think that my time is valuable. My time is valuable. We don't know how much time we got on this freaking earth. My time is valuable. If you want my time, you've got to earn my time. It's no different. I mean, listen, man. If I go to Netflix and I start watching a movie and the movie doesn't get me within 10 minutes, I'm on to the next thing. So it's not, if you with sports, man. I swear, I guarantee you, if the freaking Reds are down 7-0 in the third inning, you're Goodbye. I'm going on. Period. It's that simple. So, like I said, we're down to the only reason I watch it is because I get paid to watch it. But now it's gotten to the point whereas I will leave that money on the table because it's not worth it. My time is more valuable. You want me to watch your show, you've got to earn my viewership. And all they're doing is repeating the same show week after week after week. It's a traveling house show. I mean, that's all the show is. And now, okay, Reigns is back. Oh, so now we've got a new bloodline that we're gonna go with. Okay, now it's gonna be now Jay and Roman are gonna go against the new God, bro. I don't know how people get excited over this. The smart marks, the marks have become such Pavlovian dogs. They will eat whatever the WWE is serving. And I'm sorry, man, my time is more valuable than that.
I completely understand. So real quick, as we kind of wind down here, I wanted to ask you about a story and see if you remember it. And I'm going to give you a little bit of hints here and see if maybe you pick up on it and if it's in your memory bank. But Bruce Pritchard, on his podcast, Something to Wrestle With, and the Jim Cornette episode that he did, he tells his story about a time where he invited a couple of people over for a cookout, being you, Jim Cornette, and your kids. And so I guess something happened with a hammock and a couple of water guns. Do you remember the story I'm
Oh,
talking about?
my kid squirted Jim Cornette down on a hammock, and he wasn't too happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that story because I've always wanted to ask your perspective and how you viewed it as that story was going on.
There's a lot of things. Let me tell you the biggest issue with Jim Cornette from the get go. I'll just say this. And first of all, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I swear to God, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I don't like Eric. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
sure.
The type of person he represents, I don't like. I think Eric has a chip on his shoulder. I think Eric thinks he's better than everybody else. Eric likes people being in fear of him. Him and I are oil and water. Eric likes to tell people what to do. I'm more of a in the trenches, hands on. I'm gonna fight. We're oil and water. I don't like the guy. I don't like him. Jim Cornette is a totally different story because I swear I look at Jim Cornette as an absolute goof. I've always looked at Jim Cornette as he's a goof. And here's the problem, first of all. As a shoot, he hates New Yorkers. He hates New Yorkers as a shoot. He used to call me a Yankee all the time, thinking he was insulting me. And I would say, Jim, our baseball team is called the Yankees. You're not insulting me. Okay. So off the bat, he hates New Yorkers. I'm always going to be a New Yorker, man. That's who I am. That's the way I talk. That's the way I raised. Clearly, he's not a big fan of children. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, doesn't have children. I doubt he plans on having any children. Children might get in the way of wrestling, so he's not ever going to have any children. So, my children being there that day while he was laying in a hammock and them squirting him down with water, that did not bode too well with Jim.
Was that the beginning of his beef with you, or did that just exasperate it at that point?
Jim Cornette, I worked with Jim, and we worked closely together. And the whole time I worked at the WWE and TNA, every time I was working with him, never said a word to me. It was always when I left. When I left the WWE, the minute I left WWE, he left a voicemail on my phone at home when my kids were very, very, very young. Threatening to kill me. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The minute I left, did the same exact thing at TNA. I worked with him. I produced Jim at TNA. I produced them in those vignettes. I sat next to him in production meetings for years and years and years. But not until we're no longer working together,
Yeah.
I can't respect somebody like that. And I'll tell you, that's why, bro, a lot of times to this day, I just did a YouTube thing before I came here, and somebody said to me, "Hey Vince, Matt Morgan and Petey Williams just did a show, and they said you are an idiot." And I'm like, that's the one thing about the wrestling business where I have no respect for it and the people in it whatsoever. Because when you're in New York, a man, and you're an issue and you got an issue with somebody, you settle it man to man. You settle it face to face. Do you know how many, after I left the business, I, you know how many times I hear, oh, this one has heat with you, and that one has heat with you, and so has heat with you. Yeah, well, the funny thing is, they never had heat with me when they worked with me. They never
Right.
said anything to me when they worked with me. And
Right.
that's why I have such a lack of respect for the wrestling business and people in the wrestling business, because it is the most dishonest, backstabbing, political environment that you can possibly be in. And that's why I'm an outsider. I'm blackballed. I'll never work for another wrestling company again. Don't want to. But those are the reasons why. Because I was just a visitor in their world. I was never a part of that world. And I never, ever wanted to be a part of that world.
Yeah. As far as Jim Cornette goes, I hear some of the stories that people talk about him. I'm like, why the fuck ain't somebody knocked this dude's ass out? Like, why don't you hear more stories about somebody growing a nuts and punching this dude in the mouth? He's clearly a pussy. You could tell it just by looking at him.
Because
And
because everybody knows it's part of his shtick. Everybody,
ah,
it's like a comic, that goes out and does his routine. It's all part of his shtick. Part of Jim Cornette's shtick is I hate Vince Russo. That's
yeah,
that's part of the act. Once you start realizing that, it just gets to the point where, like, it doesn't even make you mad. Like, I hear all the time, Jim said this and Jim said that, and like, I could care less, because I'm at the point of, I'm so tired of the act. It's like, brother, at what point do we grow up? At what, I mean, again, I think Eric's 70. You're still gonna cut Vince Russo promos at 70 years old. It just gets to the point, like, guys, grow the F up, man. Like,
yeah,
seriously. You're not in the business anymore. You're not 35, 40 years old anymore. You're freaking closer to death than you've ever been in your life.
right.
Stop with the stupid wrestling bullshit, bro. And that again, man, that's just the wrestling business and the way it is, man. These people, even years and years and years after they're out of it, they're still mentally in it, and it's nuts. This to me is a job. I'll be honest with you, bro. It became a job for me when I left WWF. When I was in the WWE, the Attitude Era, I loved it. I enjoyed it. I loved my job. I loved everything I was doing. Was I getting burnt out? Absolutely. But I still love what I was doing. Once I went over to WCW and I really saw the politics of the business, at that point, it just became a job. At that
Yeah.
point, it's like, bro, do the best you possibly could do. Get your paycheck. You got to take care of your family, but this is just a job.
Yeah. Well, in closing, I completely understand what you're talking about because I have a background in music, and up until COVID, I was real deep into it. I made a lot of connections, went on a couple of different tours, and I ended up working for this group for a while. And there would always be these local people out of Columbus that would always have something to say about me on the internet. But Now, granted, the fact that I'm 6'3" might have something to do with this, but whenever we be face to face,
Right.
not a word, not a
Right.
word. One in particular, and I'll say this guy's name because fuck him. His name's Justin Tenney. He's a promoter out of Columbus. I saw him at an event that I was working as front of house as, and I was checking in all the different acts. And he shows up and he's signing his paperwork, and he's as close to me as this Mickey Rourke here on the poster is. Having a conversation, signing the paperwork. It is what it is. 2 months later, I see him on Facebook, and people are tagging me in it saying, "Hey, look at this. This dude's saying next time he sees you, it's on." And I'm like, 2 months ago, he just saw me.
Yep.
It wasn't on at all. It was all gravy, baby. You
Yeah.
didn't say a fucking word when I was face to face, but now that you're on social media, you're Hulk now? Because
Yep.
before you were Bruce Banner.
Yep.
You know?
That's wrestling, man. That's wrestling.
Yeah.
I worked side by side with Cornette literally for 10 years, literally. But every time there's an issue, it's when we're not working together. Every
Right.
single time. So I totally understand that.
Well, from my perspective, my man, you're a legend. You always will be. You were the architect of two of my favorite eras, the Attitude Era and that TNA run that you were at. As a little kid, I had two friends in life in the end of elementary school and in junior high school at the beginning of it. But even with those two friends, the one things that kept us in common was your writing with wrestling, and it got me through some really tough times in my life. So from that aspect, I want to say thank you for your contributions. It meant a lot to me. It shaped me as a person. Some of my favorite memories. I still, obviously, to this day, remember Choppy Choppy Wee Wee. I don't know why, but that's just some of the shit that when I think about going back in time and the good times, your fingerprints are all over all that stuff. So from that perspective, I say thank you. I've got a lot of respect for you, and I thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And if there's anything you want to plug, social media, websites, where to find you, all that good stuff, last couple of minutes is yours, my friend.
Yeah, guys, real quick, I like to put my money where my mouth is. I've been podcasting for 10 years now. I'm not one of these guys that rides the fence because I don't want to be hired by one of these companies. I don't have to walk the line so I get my press pass to a scrum. So I'm going to tell you what I really, really think. I've been doing Russo's brand for 10 years. I like to put my money where my mouth is. If you go to patreon.com/Russo TWC, you can get a free week. You could try us out. I'm on there with a lot of great people: Stevie Ray, Harlem Heat, Stevie Richards, EC3, Disco Inferno, Al Snow. I'm on there with a lot of great people, man. You can listen to us for a week for free. Patreon.com/Russo TWC. After that, if you want to sign up, you can get on tiers starting at $3 a month. That's 75 cents a week.
Awesome. Vince, thank you so much, my man. It's been a real pleasure.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.